So I'm on my way to Pebble Beach again, and every year I sort of look forward to it because I get to see not just special cars, but special cars to me. Perry Mansfield and I, we were walking back along the cars at the Tour d'Elegance, and I saw a Type 59 Bugatti. Oh, Perry, this is amazing. There was only 6 made originally, and then when you look over here, there's 2 more of the bloody things. So they've got 3 here, half the world's supply of T59 Bugattis. Fabulous cars.
Yeah, it's in good shape, eh?
Yeah, it's not bad.
We've done an awful lot of incredible projects at the Guild. And, you know, first and foremost amongst those really are the ones that we've done concerning Bugattis. You know, we've had the great luck of working on Bugatti Grand Prix cars, T57 Stelvio, and that led into doing probably the most famous Bugatti we've ever done, the Bugatti Aerolith. So I missed the Tour d'Elegance very early in the morning, and after spotting the T59 Bugatti Grand Prix cars in line, I turned around and there's an even older racing Bugatti.
1913, the oldest one on the road in North America, and one of the oldest 2 or 3 in the world.
Oh, is that right?
Yep.
And what is it, type?
It's a Type 22, which
Type
is the
22?
long wheelbase, more the sporting race car. They made not too many of these at all.
So did you restore it in a shop, or did you restore it, you know, yourself?
At my home.
Oh, is that right? So this is your restoration?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than the paint job, I did all the rest of it.
Can I
Sure.
show the entrance?
And this is one of the rarest engines of all, and it's a work of art. All bronze and copper, and all nickel castings instead of the aluminum blocks that they had in the later years.
And his signature.
Yeah, and his signature is just like Michelangelo signing his statue. That's, you know, the most famous engineer and designer of all time signed his first cars. But all of the other significant features that Bugatti carried for the next 20 years the car has.
This is great. So take me a little tour through it.
All right. Overhead valves, extra spark plugs because they can foul out.
Yep.
Giant oil pump on the top, which sucks it from the sump. Zenith, it's got an evaporator tank that draws fuel in. You start it by pressurizing the rear fuel tank, and it gives
Something
you enough
that
pressure.
they carried right into the late 30s
That's
on
right.
racing cars.
And this 4-speed transmission on the outside. This one has 4-wheel brakes, which is very rare, cable operated.
Yeah.
So you put on the brakes with the handbrake, and that sets the car. If you come into a corner real hot,
Yeah.
then you go ahead and put your foot brake on, which engages all 4 cables for the 4 brakes, and it's a nice straight stop.
Yeah.
And you can stop it better than virtually any other pre-1920
You know, it's
car.
really funny because people say, oh, you know, Bugattis don't stop, but they don't understand the physics behind the way they design the brakes. But I mean, if you're using the handbrake and the foot brake, now you've got a potent combination.
We normally cruise it at 45 to 55. I've had it to 70. But since it's my only Bugatti, probably the only one I'll ever have, I'm not going to blow it up. So 45 to 55 is
Oh, you
my
might.
speed. Yeah, I still might. But I still don't
Sometimes
want
you
to.
have no choice.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So we have a customer coming in today. He brought in his 1930 Model A for interior and a little bit of body and paint on it. People love these old cars. You're not a speed demon in this by any means. They're not a lot of power, 200 cubic inch, 4-cylinder, 40 horsepower, maximum speed, 60 on a downhill, maybe 65. But great car, they always have a lot of memories with them. It is pretty cool to just go cruising in it. Okay, Mike, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna make all new door panels, make the proper stitching in them. We're gonna take your seat covers off and we're gonna re-sew, re-bolster, and make your seats look new. The company that we normally would buy our interiors through, they have gone out of business. So we're gonna have to make them all from scratch. Our upholstery department's gonna make a full custom interior.
The customer doesn't want to wait. He wants to get it on the road and he wants it out for the summer. So we'll just have to make everything up from new. So we're going to make new door panels, new seat, new everything.
I've owned the car about 12 years. I always liked the style and the shape of it. You go by and people look at it and go, wow. My grandfather used to have one like that. When I was a little guy, probably about 8 or 9 years old, my grandfather passed away and the car sat outside. A bunch of us would all get in the car and you'd pretend you're going places. Take a drive to the beach, take a drive to the gas station, take a drive to the store. It didn't make any difference. We would all just get in the car and just pretend. It intrigued me, it infatuated me. This is one of the memories definitely I've had all my life. And I always said, I'm gonna have one. So I've already told my grandchildren that we'll be going out for ice cream.
It's a beautiful car. We're gonna get the interior looking good. So when you open the door, everything's just gonna pop and be new.
Perfect.
Okay, so we should pick out your colors.
Good, let's go.
So I'm at Monterey Car Week, attending the auctions. Every year there's just an amazing amount of the top-end cars at these auctions because the auction houses roll out all the best stuff this week. What's really fantastic this year is Aston Martin has decided to sell off quite a bit of their collection, and there's some just amazing Aston Martins going across the block. And as much as I like Aston Martins, there's one here I like even more. And that is the James Bond DB5 from the early movies. Who doesn't love James Bond? I mean, you know, as a kid, I can remember Goldfinger and Dr. No and all of these amazing movies that were just completely revolutionary for their time. And I mean, they created a hero out of a series of novels that really nobody heard of. And you know, one of the most iconic things about James Bond was the car. Of course, the most iconic of those was the DB5, which actually was a DB4 that was dressed up because they did something not a lot of people know. They didn't have the 5s quite ready, and so they took a 4 and they dressed it as a DB5, and that was how they first made their movie appearances.
You know, this relatively unknown producer came along and said, we want to do a British spy film, and Aston Martin said, well, yeah, I guess so, why not? Never realising at that point in time what a global phenomenon 007, James Bond, and the DB5, of course, will become. It is probably the single most significant moment in Aston Martin's history.
Seat padding's come a long way over the last 80 years. It's like they took this right out of the outhouse and mounted it on here.
You know, this is a thrill. I mean, who gets to sit in a James Bond Aston Martin and play with all the stuff?
Exactly.
The DB5, DB4's always been great favorites of mine, and one of the few cars that I've always felt I needed rather than wanted. Barney Ruprecht is a senior car specialist at RM Sotheby's. I can't believe that Barney is actually letting me sit in one of the James Bond cars. So what's the general history on this car? I mean, it is absolutely one of the original cars used in the...
Absolutely one of the original cars used for the period Sean Connery films of Goldfinger and Thunderball. They made 4 cars in total, 2 of which you saw on film and 2 of which were used for the marketing tour.
Okay.
And this is one of those 2 cars.
So she's not a movie star, she's the stand-in.
She's not exactly the one that you saw on film,
Yeah.
but you know, before mainstream media, obviously this is the car that brought James Bond to the people going to World's Fairs, county fairs, movie theaters.
Yeah.
This is the one that people actually saw and experienced, because what you saw on camera was never real. It was 2 cars that edited together.
I know, I've had to build movie cars, and when you're building them, it's never the same as nothing ever works, and they usually don't drive.
This car, you know, does actually work. All gadgets fully functional. The restoration is impeccable on this car.
So this is actually a much cooler car than the ones you see in the movies because there's more thought went into this car.
Exactly. You know, you don't really tell it's a James Bond car from the exterior, but in the cabin, if we flip up the goodies in here,
And
we
there
got
they
all
are.
of our triggers for the gadgets, whether it be oil slick, guns, the bulletproof shield, the cutout in the rear tail there. And in your driver door, you've got a very futuristic option for 1965.
May I open
Please. You know, the cellular telephone back to headquarters.
That's-
Exactly. You could totally make functional today, I'm sure.
All right, so Dan's got a couple preliminary ones out. We have a sample with a nice soft pattern.
That's a nice pattern.
Greg has Mike in to look at materials to assess which fabrics he wants. And on the Model A, if he wants light or dark.
And this one is a wool, which would have been like an original
Right.
in there. And this should lighten up the interior really nicely.
Yeah. I think that's just about what I'm looking for right there.
Perfect.
That'll really work.
Okay. Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
Mike's picked out his colors for the Model A.
We're trying to fit them with something that's more fitting for the car, and the wool is what they would have used back then. So far, right now, we've come up with beige for all the roof headliner and the door panels, and then the seats will be done in a material that has beige in it and a little bit of brown, so it has a little bit of depth to it. It's not just all the same.
Bring everything back to what it would have looked like coming out of the factory in 1930. So Dan will be on it then.
Okay. Yeah,
Perfect.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to get Dan to take the seats out of the Model A. Once he gets the covers off, he's got to make sure that the seat bases are good and the springs are gonna be reusable. These ones are in amazing shape for their age, you know, something that's over 80 years old. Automotive seat padding's come a long way over the last 80 years. This has a different coil spring setup. It's very rudimentary. No heating, no cooling, no power. I mean, when you sit in your new car, you don't hear this seat crink and make noise. Back in the day, it didn't matter. I mean, people thought that this was a luxury seat, and it was in the day. A lot better than that horse and buggy, the buckboard. Very interesting design to them. They have a hole in the bottom, so it's like they took this right out of the outhouse and mounted it on here. You can see the springs that are in great shape, nothing broken or rotted. It's an incredible time capsule, this car. Everything in it is so good. And Dan's gonna bring it back so that it is a little bit better than what it was in that day.
So this is the Model A back seat. We have the flutes already sewn in. Just have to do some steaming and to get all the lines straight and the front straight. When I took this apart, I was looking at the springwork in this, and as you can see, the springs are like brand new in perfect shape. You don't have to replace it, so it's not as much work that way. And being so old, I'm surprised it's in such good shape. I'm recovering these seats pretty much the original way they were done back in the 30s. I just stuffed the cotton into the channels. And then I hand sew the inside shut so that everything stays in place. We use the same cotton felt they would have used back then. And because you're using the felt, it doesn't break down as fast and it stays a nice firm seat for longer. It's 100% virgin wool, which they would have used back then. Looks original when it's finished.
Dan's our master upholsterer. The work that he does is phenomenal. He has so many years' experience in it. He started working in his dad's upholstery shop when he was just a teenager.
Well, my dad had an antique business, reupholstering furniture that we buy at auction sales. I come home from school and my dad would have his upholsterer there, and I'd be watching what he's doing and kind of learning how to do it from that. And then one day he wasn't there, the guy had left, our upholsterer. When my dad came home from work, he saw a chair I had started, and he thought, well, that looks pretty promising, so let's see what it looks like when it's finished. So I did the chair, my first job.
It's amazing to watch him do it, and it's an art form as far as I'm concerned.
3,900,000, 4 million.
4 million, that's the bottom of what they were hoping for.
There's a gap about 1.25 inches. These old cars never keep the shape after 75 years.
Every year, I'm fairly excited to come to the auction. So the auctions at Monterey are really special. This is when all of the auction houses roll out all the best cars. This year, I didn't get a bidder's pedal because I'm really not interested in buying any more cars than I already have.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start bidding then for this lot, and let's see, it's without reserve. Well, we're going to open the bidding asking at $20,000
But now I regret that.
and selling at $35,000,
Well, a couple of these Aston Martins, they're not doing as well as I hoped.
$50,000, going once at 72.5, going twice at $20,000. Am I selling this at $20,000 only? And it's at 185 now. Would you like to make it 240? The bid is 275,000, looking for 300, 500,000, 530,000, selling at $270,000.
Lot 108 is a 1965 Aston Martin DB5 shooting brake.
All right, we're going to start the bidding 550, 600, 650,000.
There's a wonderful car at this auction today, and it is an Aston Martin DB5, and it's exceptional because it's a shooting brake. And for those of you who don't know what a shooting brake is, That's English for a station wagon. They've always been rare. It's one of, I think, 12 built that year, and it is just amazing. I mean, the projected price is like $1 to $1.4 million, so it's a deal.
Gaveling down at $1,600,000. $1,600,000. Thank you and well done.
I mean, if you're a station wagon guy, how can you not like an Aston Martin DB5 shooting brake to throw the kids and the dog in the back of?
Ladies and gentlemen, lot 111, the most famous car in the world, the 1965 Aston Martin DB5 Bond car.
The James Bond DB5 became an icon. I mean, for the first time, everybody knew what Aston Martins were. And it was a fascinating part of the movies. As a matter of fact, when I was a kid, I went to the movies more to see the cars than the stories. They're hoping, I think, for, you know, like $4, $5, $6 million, and one chap I was talking to was thinking it may go even higher than that.
And we're going to start the bidding, ladies and gentlemen, at $2,250,000.
We'll see. Prices are a little down this year at a lot of the auctions, so, you know, I don't know where this is going to go.
$3,950,000. $4 million.
$4 million, that's the bottom of what they were hoping for.
$4,200,000. I'll take that one. $5 million. $5 million.
$5 million bucks. I should have bought a Goldfinger car a long time ago.
$5,200,000 on my left. $5,000,003. 5.5? $5,000,005. Then going once at $5,000,005.
Boy, that's not bad.
$5,000,006. If it is at $5,000,006, $5,800,000.
Wow.
Am I hammering down at $5,000,008? 1965 Aston Martin DB5 Bond car. $5,800,000. Going once and twice. Gavel is up and hammering down at $5,800,000. Well done.
Well, that's not shabby.
Thank you. $5,800,000.
Some of the auction people didn't think it would get anywhere near this, so I guess they're happy. And one guy might be a little disappointed because he was hoping it would go to 8. You know, we've just gotten to the point where Dan's finishing up putting the interior in this Model A. You know, with these old cars, when they need things like interior replacement, it's not just the fabrics. I mean, it's everything supporting the fabrics. The seat padding is no good. In this case, the bows were all twisted and bent, so the headliner couldn't just be back on the bows. So when Dad stitched the headliners back in, he actually stitched a curve into the fabric, so while the bow would normally support the fabric is also now supporting the shape of the bow.
So this is the pull I put on. Usually it's about 1/2 inch, but the reason I put the 2 inches is so I can adjust either way, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch. You staple the pull on the same shape as the bow, but you make sure it's straight so that when you pull it out the front and back, it's perfect. These old cars never keep their shape after 75 years. Back in the day, when they built cars like this, it wasn't all about the speed, so they could build it out of wood, metal, lead, whatever they needed to do it. Nowadays, it's all about the speed, so everything's fiberglass or aluminum. On a new car, you have to glue it around the pinch weld. That windshield has to be out. To put a headliner on a car like this is probably twice as easy as putting in a normal car, if not 3 times as easy. Now it holds its shape. So we've got it back to pretty much original. So all we got left to do on the Model A is to put the covers on the seats and put the seats back in the car, and that's it. Over the years, I've learned from a lot of different upholsterers, different tricks, different ways of doing things. Once the cover is made, putting it on, I usually use plastic, like a plastic bag. That way it slides on a lot easier. Well, that's something I picked up along the way. A few of my good teachers taught me how to do this, so it stuck with me, the good things. Now it holds its shape, so you can start stapling it and get it nice and even. Then I'll steam it all, and it'll be ready to go in the car. So we finally got the Model A finished. All the interior is done. I got the seats bolted in. It looks great. We've got it back to pretty much original. Door panels, headliner, all looks the same as it would have when it came out of the factories. So it all looks nice and tight and new. You can drive it in his good pants and they won't get dirty.
Mike has such a great story to go with his car. Remembers seeing them as a kid. His grandfather had one.
Outstanding.
Just wants to take his grandkids for rides in it and go get ice cream.
I can't wait. Whether we go to the beach, whether we go to the store, they'll be in the back seat with me. And now that I have the car, I won't have to pretend anymore.